be live until Tim gets in here.
Okay, we're on live
John,
now.
somebody said that
So
link at the Mixer chat is like an error.
I just did that a little bit ago, but I'll do it again. Anyway, hey, we're
Karen said it has
live
an error.
here on the Council Google Plus. Just keep talking over me, okay? Anyway, we're live here on the Google Council Google Plus, and we just had a long discussion about Bible Love and Wingnut with Matt Slick, along with Arthur, the non-Calvinist. And anyway, we're discussing about that. Go ahead, guys.
I'd actually kind of want to point out that he seems to be more anti-Calvinist rather than just being not Calvinist, because I mean he began with saying that he believes Calvinism is a cult, that people who are or consider themselves to be Calvinists are not saved, they're not Christian. So yeah, and I suppose I'll mention what I mentioned a moment ago, that what he seemed to be expressing. He would explain something that would logically lead to the conclusion of, universalism, everyone being saved. But then he would use scripture to say, no, that can't be the conclusion. And that just seemed, it just seemed to be very inconsistent. It's like, okay, well, this will lead to, this will lead to universalism, but we know that that's wrong because scripture doesn't agree with that. But it just seems kind of strange.
Yeah, I only caught the tail end portion of it, though, when they were discussing, he was bringing up the parable and trying to read the atonement into that. Well, let's go to the didactic teaching on the atonement. Those clear texts actually, in those clear passages, actually talk about the atonement to get our doctrine of the atonement, not via a parable to derive your doctrine from. It's quite a stretch. I found, at least on that tail end part there, the part that I actually caught was, essentially what he's boiling it down to is he's affirming that the legal debt is canceled. It's just that the person won't believe it. That essentially, from the non-Calvinist position, has to be that, well, that faith has to be worked up in and of itself.
It's man's the ultimate authority, decider on whether they're saved or not.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you buy into that position, which Scripture doesn't teach the Scriptures teach that faith is a gift of God. It's granted by God. It's the work of God that a person believes. It's not man's work. Therefore, he cannot work this up in and of himself. Therefore, it's granted by God. It's a gift received. And the reason why they do that is what makes men to differ from each other. Why does one choose and one doesn't? Why does one choose positively for the gospel and the other one rejects it? There's other texts I think they could have delved into to really hammer that point home. Maybe we can do that in here if that guy wants to come in there, Arthur or whatever. I like to talk to him. I think we'd enjoy a conversation with him. Just to at least press him on some key points that I think probably weren't addressed there. Because it seems from his position someone has to activate the atonement via their quote-unquote own free will. He's just presupposing it the whole way through, and I think that's a point that needs to be pressed on. So that's my thoughts. Okay, guys.
Are you there, John?
I am, yes. Sorry. What's
Okay.
going on?
Well, I guess Tim didn't come in to put the feed to Mixler, did he? I don't.
No,
Usually when he does it, he comes in and
Yeah, Matt and them are still on Mixler, and they have a really heated conversation going on. I don't even know that they know they're on Mixler.
No, I think
Okay.
they know that, because before I left, because I was in there for a little bit of time before coming over here, they I think had mentioned that they're still feeding on Mixler right now, or live on Mixler, and such. So I think they know that, but possibly that's the reason why Tim hasn't come over here yet, because what's going on right there, or right now over there.
okay, I was just curious.
Oh yeah, and Jordan seems to have some questions that he was hoping. I'm sure Matt will eventually come over here, and in fact, perhaps that's one of the reasons why David took off, is to head back into there and maybe mention that we're over here live or something. But I suppose that might also be that David had some internet issues or Google kicked him or something. But I'm sure Matt will eventually come over here because he did express some interest in wanting to join the after show.
Well, maybe y'all could try to answer a few questions I had if you didn't
Yeah, I was
mind.
gonna
I'm
say,
pretty
throw
short.
it out there. Let's see what the question is.
Okay.
problem.
I actually don't subscribe to a particular point of view, so I don't really have like a point of view to defend. I mean, I'm not an atheist, but I can't really call myself a Christian either. But I've been really trying to wrap my head around Reformed theology. I certainly agree with
I did.
I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead. Sorry.
I certainly agree with the Reformed interpretation of John 6, Romans 9. I guess I just have some questions that would be, I guess, more fundamental and not so much Bible based, but just things that just seem like, I guess, maybe like logical issues that maybe y'all have a better understanding of.
Yeah, throw it out there, man. So it gives us a point of view you're coming from. So you believe the Calvinist is consistent in the interpretation of those passages, is that right?
Yeah. I certainly think that Calvinism has the most consistent interpretation of the New Testament. I guess my first question would be about supralapsarianism and infralapsarianism, and what exactly is the difference?
That deals with the logical order, not the temporal order, but the logical order of pretty much when God's election took place. Was it view of man post-fall or before the fall? The lapsarianism there is either before or after the fall. So Scripture is very silent and given a clear detail of how that transpired. Pretty much it's a debate that's bantered about a lot, but that's the thing. It just remains, a debate kind of on that point with no conclusive grounding, I guess, where salvation, I think, at least from my viewpoint, an infralapsarianism that men to be redeemed and chosen to be redeemed, that has the fall in place. Redeemed from what? Redeemed from sin, redeemed from the fall. So that's the reason why I take that viewpoint. So it deals with the logical order of the logical choices kind of in God's mind on whom he chose to redeem. Was it, fallen sinners, or was it before man fell? He chose to do this. So I don't really find it a very meaningful debate, but it gets kind of speculative at best because we're not given substantial information from Scripture on that. So it's stuff that people have kind of delved into to think about, that logical order. But that's kind of like where that debate lies. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess it does. Just the way my brain is wired, it seems to me that the only thing that would make sense is supralapsarianism, that the elect were elect before the fall, because I mean, isn't it true that the reason God knows the future is because He decreed it?
Right. That's tied to His omniscience. Yes, definitely is His decree, because He is the one who has created all things. And they're all created for His glory. Revelation 4:11.
Okay.
That would be an evidence for the superposition, It isn't in Him before the foundation of the world, but it deals with the logical order, not necessarily the temporal, as we would think it now.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's where I was getting confused, is I was thinking of both of them as being sort of temporal in order.
That's where we, as time-bound beings, we always think of that, and then we got to think about the logical order about it. And via Scripture, you can see different viewpoints hinting at either or, from that position. That's why I say it's kind of like a non-conclusive debate. It's interesting to speculate about and stuff like that and to think about, but it really boils down to Reformed theology. It's not like a divisive thing where, one would be heretical or something like that. It's just you got evidence from kind of both sides, but it doesn't affect the doctrine at all.
Okay. Okay. But I guess I think you've answered my question, so I've actually learned something here.
All right.
So temporally, both infralapsarianism and supralapsarianism would say temporally that God's foreknowledge